I am a huge fantasy fan, and today I'll be talking about my experience in visiting Hobbiton, also known as the Shire, a lifelong dream of mine. I don't need to introduce this place to you, do I? If you're watching this channel, then you will also have dreamt of visiting the Shire for your whole life, so today I'll be answering the question, is it worth traveling all the way to New Zealand to see this place? I'll be covering some of the common critiques people have of Hobbiton, and give you my take on what it was like to visit this iconic place. Now, I was on vacation when I visited, and I didn't have the energy to get in the vlogger's mindset, so most of this will be done by voiceover and footage. Before I dive into my personal experience, I think it's important to address some of the common criticisms people have about the Hobbiton movie set. It's no secret that not everyone sees it as this magical destination is often made out to be, so let's talk about those critiques. The first point that often comes up is that it feels too commercialized or touristy. Some visitors have expressed disappointment that Hobbiton can feel more like a business than an authentic slice of Middle Earth. There are designated paths you're required to follow, and every group has a guide who narrates the tour, which to some can make the experience feel less spontaneous or immersive. It's a valid concern if you're expecting to roam freely and soak in the atmosphere at your own pace. Another common complaint is the price. Tickets to Hobbiton aren't cheap, especially if you're traveling with a family or opting for one of the premium tours. We paid 120 New Zealand dollars for one ticket, which is roughly 70 American dollars. When you compare the cost to other attractions in New Zealand, some people feel that the pricing doesn't quite match the experience. I have read comments from visitors who expected more for their money, whether that's additional access, more time on the set, or even a few extra freebies. Then there's the pacing of the tour. Some critics have said that the tour feels rushed, as if there's a clock ticking, and you're constantly being shuffled along to keep up with the group. The guides have a script to follow, which might make the experience feel a bit too polished and less personal. For fans who want to linger and take in every detail, this can understandably be frustrating. Now, do I think that these criticisms are fair? Well, yes and no. I can understand why someone might feel this way, especially if they're visiting with certain expectations. It's true that Hobbiton is a commercial operation, and the experience is designed to cater to as many visitors as possible, which can mean some sacrifices in terms of flexibility and intimacy. That said, I think it's all about mindset. For me, the guided structure added to the experience rather than detracting from it. The guide was knowledgeable and passionate, which made the tour feel more like a celebration of Tolkien's world than a corporate cash grab. As for the price, while it's not exactly budget friendly, I'd argue it's one of those one-in-a-lifetime experiences, but the value comes from the sheer magic of stepping into a world you loved for years. While the tour pacing might not leave you with hours to sit under the party tree, I never felt rushed to the point where I couldn't enjoy the details. Ultimately, I think these criticisms boil down to expectations. If you're hoping for a quiet personal journey into Middle-earth, where you can have a picnic on the grass and chill for a full day, Hobbiton might not meet that vision. But if you're open to a curated, guided experience that brings the films to life, there's plenty of magic to be found. So, now let's talk about my experience in visiting Hobbiton. Obviously, repping the broken binding. For me, stepping into Hobbiton was like stepping into a dream. As soon as I arrived, it felt as though I'd been transported straight into Middle-earth, the lush green hills, the winding paths, and the vibrant little hobbit holes. It was all exactly as I'd imagined it from both the books and the films. The sheer scale of the immersion was incredible. Everywhere you turned, there was something to marvel at, something that felt so distinctly Tolkien. What surprised me the most was how big the area is. I genuinely expected to see 3 to 4 hobbit holes and the area to be tiny, but the movie set actually has 44 hobbit holes.
I must say, my expectations were quite low for this, but very impressed. There's a lot of cute hobbit holes, like there's another one. They're all over the place. It's just a beautiful, beautiful day. So it is pricey, very, very pricey, but look at this. This is genuinely, goes all the way up the hill as well. Very, very impressed.
Obviously, most of these are empty and you can't enter them, but still, you also get a 2.5-hour guided tour where you learn so much about the set. The guide will tell you about how they found the Shire, the buildings, and the rebuilding of the area, since it was actually destroyed after the original Lord of the Rings movies and rebuilt for The Hobbit. And then there are so many cool little nuggets of information you learn. I won't mention everything, but one of my favorite things was relating to a scene filmed in Lord of the Rings. Not sure if you remember that scene where Frodo has a vision of the Shire burning. Well, that was actually recording as the Shire was dismantled and burned at the end of filming, as Peter Jackson and the crew were finalizing the return of the king. However, one of the ultimate highlights was walking through one of the hobbit holes.
We get to go inside one of the hobbit holes. Very exciting. I'm 83% human. Apparently I'm a hobbit because my head doesn't hit it.
Around 18 months ago, they opened up 2 new hobbit halls you can walk through, and you get to spend around 15 minutes in one of them, and these hobbit halls are huge. There's a kitchen, dining room, bedrooms, offices, and so much more, and you can interact with the room. Also, back end in particular was breathtaking. Just that feeling of standing outside Frodo's and Bilbo's home with the iconic round door and the sprawling view over Party Field was a moment that gave me actual goosebumps. I felt like I could almost hear Gandalf's laughter echoing in the distance. Oh, it was just amazing. And then of course there was the Green Dragon Inn. This was such a fun part of the tour. It's not just a piece, it's actually a functioning pub, and the interior is so cozy, inviting you just as you imagine a hobbit inn to be. They also even serve specially brewed ales and ciders, and you'll get a free drink as part of the tour, which was a super nice touch.
So we're now in the Green Dragon, drinking an ale, which is very nice. I also went and bought a beef pie, and my wife, beautiful wife, has a scone and a ginger beer. This experience has been definitely worth it. Also a bit sunburned, aren't I?
I must say, the attention to detail throughout the whole set was mind-blowing. The vegetable gardens, for instance, were all real and meticulously maintained. You could see cabbages, carrots, and other crops growing just as you would expect in a hobbit's backyard. Even the props, like the baskets of freshly picked produce and the clothes hanging on lines, made it feel so authentic. It's these little touches that bring the place to life and remind you just how much care and love went into creating this world. I also need to talk about the guides. The guide we had deserves a huge shout out. My guide was passionate and knowledgeable, and you could tell she genuinely loved the world of Tolkien. She shared some fascinating behind-the-scenes stories about the making of the films and pointed at details I would never have noticed on my own. For example, they explained how Peter Jackson insisted on painting moss onto fences to make them look older and more lived in. It was these anecdotes that really added to the experience and made it so much richer. Now, as a lifelong fantasy fan, visiting Hobbiton almost felt like a pilgrimage. It's one thing to read the books or watch the films, but it's another thing entirely to walk through this world brought to life. The visit deepened my appreciation for Tolkien's storytelling and Peter Jackson's vision. Really, it's not just a movie set. In my opinion, the Hobbiton is a celebration of imagination and craftsmanship. I left Hobbiton feeling inspired, like I just returned from an adventure of my own. I must say that this set truly brought the magic of Middle-earth to life in a way I'll never forget. So really, if you ever get a chance, would highly recommend the book early, especially during busy season, since it'll get far out, and then go and enjoy the Shire. I loved visiting the Shire, and I'll treasure this experience for the rest of my life. Oh, you're still here and you want more? Well, the good news is that I have a Viking book club on my Patreon. If you join my Patreon, then you get access to an exclusive book club where every single month we read one book together, and the book can be put forward by you. If you join tier 3 or 4, then you can put a book forward, and then I randomly choose a book from the pot that we end up reading together, and throughout the month we discuss the book on the Patreon chats, and then we also have Zoom hangouts, which honestly are some of my favorite times of the month. This month we're reading this book, and next month we're gonna be reading this book. Also, since I launched my Patreon, I basically spent my money back into the channel on video editing. I've had more than 40 videos professionally edited, so if you want to support what I do here and also help me upload more consistently, then I'll leave a link in the description down below.